The sky over Eastern Europe tore open in a deafening silence. There was no warning, just a strip of plasma cutting through the winter night. The invisible predator had arrived, and the world held its breath, unsure of what would come next. In Kyiv, the impact was brutal. A shockwave swept through the city, shattering windows and dreams. The nuclear-capable hypersonic missile Oreshnik, a weapon that defies physics, had just redefined the rules of war. Russian revenge had a name and a speed. This was not a common attack. The target was dangerously close to the OTAN border, a direct message to the West. The message was clear. Europe's security is an illusion of glass, and Moscow's hammer had just fallen. The smoke over Kyiv hides an apocalyptic truth. As the world watches in horror, a shadow game unfolds behind the scenes of power. Decisions made in seconds by a single man are redrawing the map of war and the fate of entire nations. In a world where force redefines borders and truth is the first victim, do you really believe diplomacy can still prevent nuclear escalation by 2026? Or has this peace deal in Ukraine already become legend, with Putin set to achieve his goal of taking Ukraine and demoralizing OTAN? Just a reminder, this report is based on news from Sky News, The New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Sputnik, RT News, and Telegram. But before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means a lot and helps you stay updated on every story about the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more. Moscow's official justification for the attack was swift and direct. Retaliation for the audacious attempted drone attack involving 91 drones against Vladimir Putin's residence in Novgorod. A red line had been crossed, and the response was disproportionate. On the other side, Zelensky's denial was equally firm. He accused the Kremlin of fabricating blatant lies. The objective, according to him, was to sabotage the fragile peace plan proposed by President Donald Trump before it could even be seriously discussed. Oreshnik is not just a missile. It is a technological statement. With a speed exceeding 5 times the speed of sound, its trajectory is almost unpredictable. Detecting it is a challenge, intercepting it, a theoretical impossibility for current defense systems. The human cost of this display of power was devastating. 4 lives lost, 22 injured, and the collapse of the heating system for 6,000 residential buildings. In the middle of winter, cold became a weapon of war as lethal as the missile itself. It was only not worse because it carried a conventional warhead, not a nuclear one. As Kyiv froze, the real question remained unanswered. Did the attack on Putin's residence actually happen, or was it staged by the Russian government to justify a planned escalation? The truth, as always, is buried beneath layers of propaganda and disinformation. The epicenter of the crisis quickly shifted from Kyiv to Europe's borders. Andriy Sybiha, a senior Ukrainian official, sounded the alarm. The missile did not just strike Ukraine, it brushed the territory of the European Union and OTAN, a clear warning. The proximity of the impact was a calculated act. a test of OTAN leadership under Mark Rutte. The world's most powerful military alliance was publicly challenged, and a response was expected by all, allies and enemies alike. In Kyiv, pressure mounted. Zelensky, sensing urgency, demanded a clear and unequivocal reaction from Donald Trump. The U.S. president was placed at the center of the global chessboard, forced to make a move that could define the future of the conflict. Contrary to the climate of confrontation, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni adopted a more cautious tone. She suggested that despite the aggression, the European Union should keep channels of dialogue open with Russia. A voice of reason or dangerous naivety? But Meloni's diplomacy hid a deeper complexity. While calling for dialogue, she ruled out military action in Greenland, yet demanded that OTAN assume full control of the Arctic. How can peace be negotiated while preparing for a new front of battle, especially against the most powerful member of the group itself? Amid diplomatic chaos, a dangerous fissure opened within OTAN itself. One member country openly threatened another ally. The alliance, meant to be a pillar of security, showed signs of fracture under the immense pressure of recent events. While Europe debated its response, across the Atlantic, Donald Trump was already moving his own pieces. In a casual statement, he admitted that he was not only planning, but already executing a new and decisive move against Venezuela. Trump's world is digital and relentless. A single post on social media has the power to redraw alliances and initiate sieges. The New World Order is no longer forged in treaties, but in digital decrees that instantly turn into physical reality. Proof of this came with the seizure of the tanker Olena in the Caribbean. A swift, silent operation demonstrating economic suffocation in real time. The fall of Nicolas Maduro was no longer a threat, but a successful operation displayed online in real time. But what was the real motive behind such a rapid and aggressive intervention in Venezuela? J.D. Vance, Trump's vice president, revealed the uncomfortable truth. World peace, according to him, depended on punishing Maduro and his wife. A bold statement full of implications. The moral narrative was reinforced by British Minister Kemi Badenoch. With firm support, she declared that Trump was right to have kidnapped Maduro. The fall of the Venezuelan leader was presented not as an attack on Venezuela's sovereignty, but as a surgical strike deemed necessary at the beginning of the year. As the siege tightened by air, sea, and land, the question echoing through Caracas became inevitable. What happens to a country when its leader is forcibly removed? Maduro's fall appears to have been only the beginning of a new and uncertain chapter. While Venezuela was being suffocated, a silent war for resources intensified. Leaked documents revealed that the United States, while maintaining official sanctions, secretly profited from selling Venezuelan oil on the parallel market. A dangerous double game. The White House, in a strategic move, made an irresistible offer to India: Venezuelan oil at subsidized prices, with one condition: weaken its economic and military ties with Russia. Energy was being used as a weapon to redraw the geopolitical map. But why is India so crucial in this game? The answer lies in the growing influence of BRICS. The bloc, which challenges American hegemony, was preparing for a major naval exercise off the coast of South Africa. A show of force Washington could not ignore. The BRICS naval exercise, led by South Africa, was a direct counterbalance to the U.S. naval presence in the Caribbean and the South China Sea. A new power alliance was consolidating, with resources and military strength to challenge the established order. China, feeling American pressure on its borders, decided to strike back. Beijing imposed severe restrictions on the export of essential minerals to Japan, a key U.S. ally. The message was a clear warning regarding the Taiwan issue. For Trump, the New World Order was clear. Europe, divided and hesitant, was being progressively isolated. Meanwhile, new alliances were forged with nations willing to align with the American vision, creating a new global power map. This complex global chessboard, with simultaneous moves in Europe, South America, and Asia, leads to a terrifying simulation. What would happen if one of these pressure points spiraled out of control? The doomsday clock began ticking faster. Simulating nuclear war is no longer an academic exercise. With Oreshnik proving that defenses are useless, the question is no longer if, but when, a miscalculation could trigger the unthinkable. Are we truly prepared for the consequences? At the center of Russia's arsenal, the Oreshnik missile is the spearhead. But it is only part of an overwhelming force. Russia holds the largest number of nuclear warheads on the planet, an arsenal capable of destroying the world multiple times. The United States, in turn, relies on its nuclear triad: strategic bombers, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and nuclear submarines. The surgical precision of Minuteman III missiles, launched from underground silos, ensures an immediate and devastating response capability. As the two superpowers face each other, China and North Korea race to expand their own arsenals. Their increasingly sophisticated intercontinental missiles already have the range to strike any capital in the world, adding a new and unstable variable to the equation. In Europe, the role of France and the United Kingdom is purely deterrent. Their nuclear arsenals, though smaller, guarantee a scorched earth scenario. Any attack on the European continent would trigger retaliation that would render the aggressor's victory meaningless and catastrophic. But what does nuclear war mean in practical terms? A simulation of the impact of a single 100-megaton warhead on a major metropolis is apocalyptic. The radius of total destruction would span dozens of kilometers, followed by a global nuclear winter. Nuclear winter, caused by dust and smoke blocking sunlight, would lead to the collapse of global agriculture. Hunger and cold would kill far more people than the explosions themselves. Civilization as we know it would simply cease to exist. As the doomsday clock approaches midnight, the pressing question becomes, where will the ignition point be? Where will the Third World War, a conflict everyone fears but seems to prepare for, truly begin? All eyes turn to Taiwan. Military and intelligence analysts agree that the year 2026 is the critical window for a potential Chinese invasion. The island has become the most dangerous powder keg on the planet. But Taiwan is not alone. Global instability has created a list of potential targets. Countries with border disputes, strategic resources, or fragile alliances could be attacked this year, triggering a domino effect of aggression and retaliation beyond anyone's control. And OTAN? The alliance meant to shield the West is showing cracks. Internal tensions, intensified by economic and political pressures, threaten to implode the organization even before the first Russian shot is fired on its territory. Who will defend Europe if OTAN collapses? The power of the post, Trump's new doctrine of warfare, is the most unpredictable factor. Modern war is declared, fought, and sometimes decided on social media long before armies move. Public opinion is the first trench. The world has never been closer to the abyss. The combination of hypersonic weapons, unpredictable leaders, and fragile alliances has created the perfect storm. Every move on the global chessboard could be the last before final checkmate. The Oreshnik strike near the Otan border was more than a provocation. It was a demonstration that Russia no longer fears Western red lines. The era of diplomatic containment appears to have come to an abrupt and violent end. By demanding a response from Trump, Zelensky placed the U.S. president in a delicate position. Any hesitation would be seen as weakness, but any military action could lead to uncontrollable escalation. The world watches, waiting for the next move. Giorgia Meloni's cautious posture reveals Europe's deep internal divisions. While some call for military response, others fear that any direct confrontation with Russia would lead to mutual annihilation. European unity faces its hardest test. A threat from one OTAN ally against another is a symptom of global disorder. If the alliance cannot maintain peace among its own members, how can it project security and stability to the rest of the world? OTAN's credibility is at stake. The siege of Venezuela, orchestrated by Trump, is a clear example of the new geopolitical reality. National sovereignty has become a flexible concept subordinated to the strategic interests of major powers. The era of digital and economic interventions has begun. The seizure of the tanker Olena and the offer of oil to India show that the war for resources is the true driver behind conflicts. Control of energy sources matters more than ideology or rhetoric about democracy and human rights. The BRICS naval exercise signals that the U.S.-dominated unipolar world is coming to an end. A new power configuration is emerging, with multiple poles of influence competing for resources, territory, and global hegemony. China, with its export restrictions and military expansion, is clearly preparing for confrontation. The Taiwan issue is merely the pretext for a broader struggle over global leadership. Are we witnessing the rise of a new empire and the decline of another? Trump's vision of a new world order, with an isolated Europe and new strategic alliances, is becoming reality. The old system of collective security is being replaced by a network of bilateral deals based on pragmatic interests and military power. Simulating nuclear war reminds us of the fragility of our existence. The technology that gave us power and progress also gave us the ability to annihilate ourselves completely. The sword of Damocles hangs over humanity, suspended by an ever thinner thread. The power of Oreshnik and hypersonic missiles has changed the nature of war. Their speed and unpredictability eliminate reaction time, making human decisions almost irrelevant. The era of algorithmic warfare, fought by machines, has already begun. The American nuclear triad, though powerful, faces a new challenge. How do you deter an attack that cannot be detected in time? The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, which preserved peace during the Cold War, may no longer be enough. The rapid nuclear expansion of China and North Korea adds further instability to an already volatile scenario. With more fingers on nuclear triggers, the likelihood of accidents, miscalculations, or madness increases exponentially. Where does this end? The role of France and the United Kingdom as Europe's nuclear powers is more crucial than ever. They are the continent's last line of defense, the guarantee that any aggression will carry an unacceptable cost. But would they be willing to sacrifice everything for their allies? The impact of a single 100 megaton warhead is a grim reminder of what is at stake. The destruction of a metropolis would be only the beginning. The nuclear winter that followed would plunge the planet into a new dark age, from which recovery might never come. The year 2026, as the critical date for a Taiwan invasion, is not idle speculation. It is the result of military analyses considering the modernization of China's armed forces, political opportunity windows, and Beijing's growing assertiveness. The list of potential targets for attacks this year is a closely guarded secret in the halls of power. But geopolitical logic tells us that any country with internal instability and valuable resources is at risk. The era of peace and stability is over. OTAN's fragility is Putin's greatest advantage. He knows the alliance is divided and that political will for total war is low. He is testing limits, pushing the frontier, waiting for the moment when the alliance finally breaks. Is that day near? The power of the post, the ability to shape public opinion and declare war with a click, is the most powerful weapon of the 21st century. Information and disinformation have become battlefields as important as land, sea, and air. The world has truly never been closer to the abyss. The complex interaction of military technology, geopolitical ambition, and human fragility has created a state of extreme danger. We are standing at the edge of a precipice, and the wind is strong. Russian revenge for the alleged attack on Putin's residence sets a dangerous precedent. Disproportionate retaliation becomes the new norm, accelerating the cycle of violence. Each action generates an even stronger reaction in a spiral that leads only to catastrophe. Zelensky's denial and his accusation that Moscow is sabotaging peace place the world in a stalemate. If truth is relative and trust is non-existent, how can diplomacy function? We are trapped in a war of narratives where no one believes anyone. The technical details of Oreshnik are more than mere numbers. They represent a fundamental shift in the balance of power. The nation that masters hypersonic technology will dominate the future battlefield. The arms race has entered a new and dangerous phase. Who will prevail? The collapse of heating in Kyiv during winter is a cruel example of total war. Civilian infrastructure has become a legitimate target, and population suffering is used as a tool to break the enemy's will. Modern war has no rules. The proximity of the strike to the OTAN border was a calculated chess move to test the alliance's resolve. OTAN's response, or lack of it, will send a clear message to Moscow about how far it can go without triggering total war. Zelensky's demand for a response from Trump is a desperate appeal for leadership. Ukraine cannot win this war alone. It needs full Western support, but the West is divided, exhausted, and fearful of the consequences of direct confrontation. Meloni's call for dialogue, in contrast to military escalation, reflects Europe's dilemma. How can the need for defense be reconciled with the desire to avoid a war that would destroy the continent? Europe stands at a historic crossroads. The threat of one OTAN ally against another is Mark Rutte's nightmare. His primary task as the alliance's new leader is to preserve unity. If he fails, OTAN could become irrelevant, leaving Europe vulnerable to all threats. Can he prevent collapse? Trump's admission regarding his plans for Venezuela reveals his transactional approach to foreign policy. For him, everything is a negotiation, and force is the primary currency. The world, according to Trump, is dangerous and unpredictable. The seizure of the Olina and the economic suffocation of Venezuela serve as a warning to other countries that challenge American interests. Economic warfare can be as devastating as military action, and the United States is willing to use it without hesitation. The true motive behind intervention in Venezuela, the pursuit of world peace, is a justification few believe. History shows that foreign interventions rarely bring peace, but rather instability, violence, and suffering for local populations. Kemi Badenoch's support for Trump reinforces the idea that the West is rallying around a new confrontational strategy. The era of multilateralism and cooperation appears to have been replaced by a new Cold War, with clear alliances and defined enemies. Maduro's fall has not solved Venezuela's problems. On the contrary, it may open a Pandora's box of internal power struggles, violence, and instability. The future of the oil-rich but otherwise impoverished country is bleak. Who will benefit from the chaos? U.S. profit from Venezuelan oil while sanctions remain in place is hypocrisy in its purest form. American foreign policy, once again, appears guided more by economic interests than moral principles. Rhetoric and practice rarely align. The offer of oil to India to weaken Russia is a bold move in the geopolitical game. But India, an emerging power with its own interests, will not be easily manipulated. It will play its own game, seeking what benefits it most. The BRICS naval exercise proves that power is becoming more diffuse. American hegemony is being challenged on multiple fronts, and the world is becoming more multipolar and therefore more unstable and dangerous. Competition among great powers is back. China's counterattack against Japan over Taiwan offers a glimpse of the future. Wars of the 21st century will be fought as much in financial markets and supply chains as on battlefields. Economic interdependence has become a weapon. In a world where force redefines borders and truth is the first victim, do you really believe diplomacy can still prevent nuclear escalation by 2026? Or has the peace deal in Ukraine already become legend, with Putin set to achieve his goal of taking Ukraine and demoralizing OTAN? Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of the video. You're awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates on the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more.